Welcome to the How to Be Awesome at Your Job podcast.
I think delegation is the single biggest key to unlocking success and happiness in life. Delegation is the biggest tool that allows us to have the freedom to pursue our number 1, 2, and 3 priorities in life. It's hard to let go of stuff that you're used to owning and controlling and doing the work on, and it's worth muddling through and challenging fears that are holding us back from delegating more and the constraints that we think we have that maybe we don't have as badly as we might think. The secret to delegating is much less about how to do it and much more about getting over yourself, getting through your brain, and dealing with the fear and the distrust issues and the perfectionist issues that are likely holding you back.
That's Dave Kerpen. He's a serial entrepreneur, New York Times bestselling author, and a global keynote speaker. He's also the co-founder and co-CEO of Apprentice, a platform that connects entrepreneurs with the brightest college students to solve their biggest business challenges. Today, he's sharing his best wisdom from his latest book, Get Over Yourself: How to Lead and Delegate Effectively for More Time, More Freedom, and More Success. So you'll learn 1, how to get over yourself and finally begin delegating. 2, how to become a master delegator in 5 steps. And 3, a simple rule to prevent embarrassment when delegating and automating. I'm Pete Mikaitis. This is How to Be Awesome at Your Job. And now, here's Dave. Dave, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm excited to get into your wisdom about delegation, and I'd love it if you could kick us off with maybe one of your most surprising and fascinating discoveries about us humans and delegation.
Well, the most surprising thing is that the secret to delegating is much less about how to do it and much more about getting over yourself up here, getting through your brain, dealing with the fear and the distrust issues and the perfectionist issues that are likely holding you back.
All right. Well, succinctly stated right off the get-go, Dave. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. So that's the scoop. So that's funny. If people think I'm having trouble delegating, they may very well say, I need a model. I need some steps. I need an acronym. I need a mnemonic. And Dave, you're saying, no, what you probably need first is to get over yourself because you've got some emotional stuff that's hindering this whole process.
Yeah. And look, my book has the steps and the acronyms and the models, and I love acronyms. I'm all for models. I'm all for systems and tools, but too many people try a system or tool for anything, but certainly in this case, for delegation, it doesn't work. And then they say, forget it, this doesn't work. And the real answer is let's do the work on ourselves and deal with the issues, the limiting beliefs, the challenge, the fears that are holding us back. And then my model might work well, but there's a lot of other models, right? Or this software might work well, but there's 15 other softwares that might work well as well. And it's less about choosing the software and more about getting the mindset right to be able to delegate.
I hear that. And so maybe if folks are so not over themselves that they don't even think it's possible, Dave, can you paint a picture of hope? Maybe share some data or a story.
Yeah. So first I'll paint a picture of a sadder story, and then I'll tell my story, which hopefully is a little less sad. Scott came to me. Names have all been changed to protect the guilty, but Scott was a longtime real estate entrepreneur, worked for himself essentially, but built a nice little practice with having a couple people work for him over the years, made a lot of money, came to me years and years into his career and sort of mentoring me, said, I made a lot of money over the years. My son just turned 21 and I missed his growing up. I missed basketball games. I missed parent-teacher conferences. I missed an awful lot because I was so focused on building my business. And if I could go back, maybe I wouldn't care so much about building my business because, yeah, it made me lots of money, but I will never get that time back with my son. And that story struck me. So as I was doing the research for my book, I looked at deathbed research on what deathbed regrets people had. And perhaps this won't surprise you at all, but as you might guess, Pete, very, very small percentage, under 1% of people regret not working enough hours. People almost always, over 50% of people, on the other hand, regret when they're asked for deathbed regrets, regret not having more time with friends and family, not having more time to pursue their passions, not having more time to pursue travel and other key hobbies. We all get the same amount of time, and we only get one shot at it in this lifetime. And the reason I wrote this book is that, sure, delegation will make you a more productive employee. Delegation will make you a more productive leader. Delegation will make you a successful entrepreneur, depending on what it is that you do. But I think the stakes are much higher than that. I think delegation is the single biggest key to unlocking success and happiness in life. I will share that there's many, many things that I'm not good at, but one thing that I've been fortunate, the sort of happier story is that I pick up my son from the school bus every day and shut off my phone. And for those 3 hours after school, I'm helping him with his homework, and we're playing baseball. We're having catch, playing basketball. I'm getting that all important family time, that all important parenting time. That's my priority. That might not be if you're listening, that might not be your priority, but then you might want to climb Mount Everest, or you might want to work out 3 hours a day, or you might want to find the love of your life. Delegation is the biggest tool that allows us to have the freedom to pursue our number 1, 2, and 3 priorities in life. And so for me, that's something I'm proud of. And I wrote this book to help share that with others.
All right. Beautiful. So delegation unlocks all kinds of good possibilities for us. The hang up is that we are stuck believing that I don't trust them. They won't do it as good as I can. Only I am capable of doing this. Any number of these beliefs, mindsets, etc. So Dave, help us out. If we are in that place, like, okay, Dave, that sounds really awesome. Maybe you've managed to find some great people, but I mean, I've got a team of knuckleheads, or I've been burnt before, in terms of trying to delegate and it didn't go so well. So what do I do?
Yeah. Well, that's, I mentioned before, maybe you try a tool and it doesn't work, and then you sort of give up. I think a lot of people delegate poorly and choose poorly the person to delegate to. And when we get into my system and acronym, and I do believe in such things, like I said, the number one and the most important aspect in the beginning is who you choose. And they choose the wrong person. They choose the person that's there, or the most convenient, cheapest, lots of reasons, but they choose the wrong person. And then, of course, it's going to fail if you choose the wrong person. But you got to keep trying until you get it right, because the solution can't be that you do everything. You'll burn out. You'll be miserable. You won't have all that time. So let's attack one of those myths that you shared, Pete. You're the best person for the job. Let's really think about this. If we think about this rationally for a minute, there's 7 billion people. I said I'm good at delegating. I'm pretty good at marketing. There's so many things I'm not good at. And for me to think that I am the best person for any given task, virtually anything. I mean, anything. Let's say anything, actually, because honestly, there's lots and lots of people that are way better at any possible thing that I could do. It's frankly narcissistic and somewhat ridiculous of me to really try to convince myself that I am the best person for the job. I am very, very rarely the best person for the job. I might be the only person that knows precisely what's in my head for how to do something, but I might also be wrong about the best way to do something. In fact, I'm probably wrong about the best way to do something. Chances are there's people out there that could get to the finish line much, much better than I can. So if that's in fact true, then the next challenge that I have is, okay, how can I choose the right person and then explain what that finish line looks like in a really clear, concise way that allows that person to be mutually aligned with me on precisely what the outcome looks like. And then the trust issue comes up. How can I, and this is hard. I get how hard this is. I've been there. I've managed a lot. I've coached a lot of people here that have a tough time trusting others, but there has to be some level of trust that somebody else is going to make their way to the finish line. And they're probably not going to do it the same way I would. In fact, it's very rare that they would do it the same way I would, but they might do it differently and they might do it better than I would. And if they can get to the finish line, if they can get even to 80% of the finish line the way I would have done it, but allow me the time to do other things, not worry about it, well, then I have won.
Inspiring. Yes. I like the winning, and that's cool. Let's stay with the myths for a little bit longer. I'm with you. Okay. Fair enough, Dave. 7 billion people alive on this earth. Maybe I am. One in a million. Well, then there's 7,000 people that as good or better than I am at that thing. So, okay, fair enough. But in terms of realistically speaking, can I find that person? Will they be available? Can I afford them? In terms of like the practical realities, are we thinking that, in fact, it is still the case that I could find someone who will do a thing better than me, even if I'm awesome at that thing, given these real world constraints?
Yeah. Let me answer that in two ways. First, maybe they won't do it better than you, but this is where most of us, to one extent or another, are perfectionists. So we have an idea about what we want something to be, and perhaps better than us is not necessary, and perhaps the same as us is not necessary. That's where I got to that 80, 85%. If they can get to 80, 85% of what we would want, but relieve us of all the stress and the work and the agita of getting there, then I see that as a good outcome. The other thing I want to address is this issue of how do I find this person, this mythological person? I can't afford it. I don't have the resources. I don't have the money, etc. That may be the case, but more often than not, when people come to me with this and I challenge them on it, we get to the heart of it, and it seems like they're making excuses because they're afraid or distrustful or maybe truly ignorant. In this day and age, when I can personally go on Fiverr and hire somebody for $5 to design a flyer for me, or if I'm really looking for high level, so that's on the one end, on the basic tasks, and then on the higher end, folks come to me and say, I can't find a CMO. I can't afford a CMO. And to them, I say, maybe you can't afford it. Maybe you don't have the cash, but then maybe if you're an entrepreneur, you can share equity and find a partner here. Find a partner. Much better to have a smaller piece of a bigger pie and find a partner or two or three. I think there are always creative solutions to find folks that delegate. You could be listening to the show, Pete, and you could be an entry-level employee. If you have a set of tasks and you're responsible for getting those tasks done, and you think of a more creative way to get them done than you doing it, like, for instance, hiring somebody on Upwork and Fiverr for, X dollars, and you vet the process and manage the process, and you pitch your boss on the business case for getting the job done that way versus you doing data entry or whatever that tedious work is all day long. I can't predict what the boss will say, but I know that if somebody came to me and gave me a good business case for managing something differently and better than I had thought of in the first place, I'd say, great, go for it. So a lot of the time, it's a matter of creatively thinking through better ways to divvy up the work than maybe we're thinking. But maybe we're too stuck in the box of having to get the work done ourselves.
Okay, so we've busted one myth. Could you bust another, or help us with a general thinking, doing approach for getting over ourselves?
So, Pete, I think the number one thing that holds us back, and the reason get over yourself is really has a dual meaning of right, get over yourself to delegate work, but also get over the mindset issues that get in your way, is fear. I think that a lot of us at all ages and all levels of seniority at companies have fear of failure, have fear of not getting things right, have fear that other folks won't get the job done as well as we would, have fear that maybe if we're off with our kids or golfing or doing something else that we're not doing our job right, even if the work gets done. There are all these fears that we have, and ultimately fear, of course, is false evidence appearing real. Fear holds us back. All fear holds us back. And so in my model, in my vision, in my dream, and in my scenario, and what I try to do is feel the fear, because I'm afraid. I'm afraid of screwing up on your podcast right now. I'm afraid of not being valuable for your listeners. I'm afraid of not delivering. But I understand that fear, and then I proceed and act anyway. That's literally the definition of courage. And so when we are, instead of like trying to push the fear away, when we embrace it and tackle it head on and say, okay, it's okay to be afraid that this person's going to screw up. It's okay to be afraid that we're going to lose our jobs. It's okay to be afraid that we're going to lose our clients. And in the face of that fear, I'm going to take an action and figure out how to best delegate this work so that I don't lose my mind, so that I don't burn out, so that I get this job done in a better way than maybe I would have otherwise. And that's the courage that it takes to get over ourselves in that manner.
All right. I dig it. Thank you. So yeah, let's talk about the model in terms of how, in fact, do we determine what we ought to delegate and then do so effectively?
Yeah. So we've got two acronyms. You mentioned that the acronyms earlier, and while I said that acronyms are great, I said we got to deal with the mindset issues first. So we've dealt with the mindset issues. We're through it. We're having the courage to act. And now, what do we actually do, and what do we actually delegate? And so the model is there's three things that we should be doing as leaders, managers, individuals with jobs. Those three things have to do with the overall vision and strategy of the goals here. If we're in a position to hire people, the making sure that we have the right people in the right seats, the hiring process, and the resources issue. Now, resources is a tricky one. If you're the CEO, yeah, it's your job to make sure there's money in the bank. If you manage a department, it's your job to manage up and make sure to your boss that you have the headcount and the resources to get the job done. And if you are managing projects but not people, it is absolutely your job to make sure that you personally have the bandwidth and resources, and that, again, you manage up to your boss to say, this is what I will need to get the job done. And if that includes an extra $100 to manage a Fiverr project, well, then you've got to advocate for that. So those three things, strategy and vision, hiring the right people in the right seats, and access to resources and capital to get the job done. After those three things, my belief is that you can delegate nearly all, if not all, of the rest. And so the share model is strategy, hiring, access to capital, and then remind ourselves that if there's anything else, we can empower somebody else to do the job. Then we move into the 5 C's model of delegation. The first and probably most important C is choosing the right person or resource to delegate to. Again, we may think, listening right now, because I've done a bunch of podcasts that I already know, and I've done a lot of coaching of people, and I've heard all of the complaints, all the excuses already. I don't have the resources, I don't have the money, I don't have the budget. So let me share that when we're thinking about choosing the right person, it is not just a full-time employee that you could delegate this work to. It could be an intern, it could be an apprentice, it could be a contractor on Upwork or Fiverr, it could be a virtual assistant, it could be a vendor, a consultant, there are a partner, there are numerous types of folks that you could delegate the work to. And the biggest mistake folks do is jumping immediately to hiring the wrong person, maybe just the person that's the closest in proximity, the person that works down the hall from them, the person that is their peer, the person that, oh my goodness, my first company was in the social media space. Do you know how many people hired their 21-year-old niece or nephew to run social media for their company because they happen to be the 21-year-old? Well,
you use Instagram.
You have a TikTok account, don't you? Make some videos for me. Right. So this first big mistake is choosing the wrong person. And if there's anything that should be the bottleneck, nothing really should be a bottleneck. But if there's anything that it's worth taking the most time on, it's that first piece of choosing the person to delegate to. The next C is communicating clearly what the intended outcome is. And note, what I'm talking about is not every step. There are some folks out there that, whether I say it or not, they're going to micromanage. They're going to do the standard operating procedures. They're going to do detailed instructions on precisely how to get to the finish line. And if that's really important to you, I'm not here to say you can't do that. But in my experience when hiring people, folks like autonomy. They like to be able to get to the finish line in their own way, to zigzag a little bit, learn a little bit, have some freedom. People aren't robots. They don't want to just input in, output out, like they don't want to be robots. Exception might be GPT and actually delegating to robots. We can get to that in a little while. But when we're managing people, what I would say is the key thing here with this C is to communicate clearly the intended outcome. What does success really look like? Paint that picture, and then ideally empower them to get there the way that they see fit. The next C is coaching them to success. Way too many people see themselves as managers. Nobody likes managers. Managers are bosses. Managers are in your face. Managers are not there to support you. They're there to boss you around. Coaches, on the other hand, which is I strongly urge y'all to use the word coach instead of manager. Coaches, anyone that's played sports as a kid has had the experience of having a coach, hopefully a good coach, somebody that cheers them on, teaches them along the way, supports them when they have challenges. So by all means, coach your person on to success. The fourth C is check in on the regular. I personally like weekly 15-minute check-ins, just where I'm there to say any challenges, how can I help you reach your goals, etc. And then the final C, which is often also forgotten, is congratulate them. When you get to the finish line, please, by all means, celebrate success together, and then of course move on to the next project. So that's in a nutshell, the share model for what to delegate and the 5 C's model for how to delegate when possible.
Oh, I like that a lot. And Dave, I'd love it if you could make this come alive for me with an example that I've heard is quite tricky. I was chatting with someone who is just excellent at sales. In terms of when he's having those conversations with a prospect, they are just listening wonderfully, asking great questions, building rapport, being super honest and creative. Like, hey, these are the solutions we got. This might work for you. This probably won't. This is what I would try instead. And such that it generates referrals and business and good close rates, all sorts of lovely things. And yet, the challenge is there's a whole lot of other responsibilities in the universe of making sales happen beyond talking to a prospect, in terms of managing the lists and the outbounds and the marketing and the vetting of the potential prospect, et cetera, et cetera. And so we've had some conversations like, boy, it should be great if there's a way that we could delegate all of that such that you just had appointment after appointment after appointment and doing what you're amazing at and doing less of what sort of sucks your energy and is not perhaps the highest and best use of your time. That'd be really cool. And he said, yes, that would be really cool. But in practice, I've never actually seen a master salesperson do that effectively because, people come in, the prospects come in, you want to be quick and responsive to them like all the time before the demo or the meeting, and then have the follow-ups, but the follow-ups are best coming from you and not someone else. Because like, wait, who's this other person? Am I going to talk to this person? I want to talk to the main, salesperson and not the secondary assistant to the salesperson. And so these are the sorts of hangups that have made this tricky. So Dave, I'm just going to lay that on you and say, here's the trickiest delegation question I've bumped into. How do we crack it?
Well, Pete, it's as if we planned this, and God is my witness, we did not. But the story that I will share is actually precisely the same role. And I didn't write about this in the book, but perhaps I should have. Very impressive young man, Sam, who was a salesperson for me, who, very similar to what you said, was an excellent salesperson, not so excellent, as frankly, probably many salespeople are, not so excellent at the pre-work, the post-work, the putting it into the CRM, all that administrative stuff. And he said to me, Dave, can I have a budget for an assistant? And I said, no. Said, here's what I'm going to do. You take the chance. You prove the business model. You hire the assistant out of your commissions. And if it works, I'll make the budget for you. I wanted him invested in making it work. And lo and behold, he took money out of his own commission check to fund an assistant to do all of that, to delegate all of that stuff to. And this is a rare case because most cases in corporate America, you're not funding a headcount out of your own pocket, right? That's pretty insane. But in this, small business entrepreneurial environment, he pitched me. I said, here's the deal. You want to do this? Go ahead. And guess what? It worked. And I created the budget for sales support, for admin support, because he was able to prove that there was a business value in delegating all that other stuff that frankly was not the best use of his time to somebody else. So it's absolutely doable. It is doable.
Okay, so it is doable, and that's encouraging. Could you share with us a little bit of the particulars, some of the nitty gritty for how this vexing delegation problem can actually be cracked in the nuts and bolts?
Yeah, I mean, he interviewed a bunch of people. We'll walk you through with the 5 C's model. So he interviewed a bunch of people. He knew what he was looking for. And for him, while the tasks were important, the fit, the cultural fit, the somebody that he could reach out to and really bounce things off of was probably even more important. So I'm not him, but as I understand, he interviewed maybe 7 or 8 people, hired somebody, hired AJ, gave AJ very clear directions over the types of prospects that he wanted him to reach out to. AJ did the prospecting, AJ did the outreach, There were some missteps along the way. People are going to make mistakes. That's okay, as long as you coach them. So Sam coached him, actually, I'd like more prospects like this. And he did just that. He adjusted along the way, getting him better prospects. They showed up for the calls. Sam did his work. He closed them up, passed them back to AJ, who followed up to do the contracts and do the follow-ups and do all of that administrative work, getting them in the CRMs and doing the contracts and all that stuff. And ultimately, both people did their jobs, and Sam made a lot more money for himself and for me, for the company, by delegating that work and coaching his assistant through the steps that he needed done.
Okay, and not to get too much into the weeds here, but when AJ is reaching out as AJ and his name and his email to the people, and he's saying to the prospects, "Oh, let me have you speak with Sam." And there's a handoff, or is AJ stealth being Sam in the email?
No, there's a handoff. I think that authenticity is important, and so I'm all for delegating. Clearly, many things. But if you get a LinkedIn message from me, it's from me, and I might have an assistant. My apprentices are going to write all the messages. They might draft all the messages. They might select all, using whatever criteria. They'll do all the work in figuring out who to send messages to. But I like to click send. I do think it's important at the end of the day for authenticity of we are who we say we are.
Yeah, and I agree. And what's really funny is if in this particular delegation scenario, and I guess this is a tricky nuance I'm glad we're discussing, it's funny because so Dave, I get a lot of inbound pitches. People want to be on the podcast, and that's cool, but what a great place to be. What a blessing. But what's really funny is it's clear that either there are, PR firms or software or automations or something happening where someone says, "Oh, hey, Pete, I think we could really make a great podcast, blah, 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 blah." And I say, "Yes, I agree. In fact, we did make a great podcast 4 months ago. It was memorable to me. I'm sorry if you've already forgotten it." And I'm just teasing them because I know what's happening. And they're like, "Oh, Pete, I'm so sorry." Oh. Or I'll be like, "Hey, Justin, I'm getting this message from you, but it feels as though we don't have a relationship and we haven't seen each other in person numerous times." And we certainly have. It is like, "Oh yeah, sorry," and so like that happens. And, I don't hold it against them. Like, you're dead to me, for this faux pas, but it does diminish a little bit. It's not a good feeling. And it could actually, in fact, be more devastating if, in fact, like, "Hey, what the heck, man? We've had a long-standing business relationship, and and maybe actually things are tense right now in our business relationship, and I'm getting an automated message from quote unquote you that isn't really from you." That might be enough to push it over the edge. I think there's a lot to it, whether it's a human or a robot or an automation. That the way you've said it is like, you're the person who clicks send, because then you can be like, "No, wait a minute, not that person. I'm already friends with that person. They don't get a message like this."
That's right. As much as I think that there is lots and lots of opportunity for delegation to tools and use of software tools, when we don't have, I talk about resources to delegate. Sometimes we don't have individuals, or we don't think we have individuals to delegate to. There are a lot of great tools to manage a lot of tasks. But when it comes to communication with people, I do think authenticity is an issue. It's funny, I told a story in my very first book, now 12 years ago, about I was friends with a state senator on Facebook, and I got a live chat from him asking me for a donation. And I was like, I feel like I donated recently. And he replied, "I know, but I really need a little bit more." And something was amiss. So I said, "Wait, this is my state." I'll protect the guilty here. I said, "This is my state senator, X and X name, right?" Pause. And I said, "Please respond. Actually, this is an intern. I'm managing the account." Like you said, sometimes the stakes are higher than other times. I mean, if I really wanted to blow that person up, right, for using interns to pretend to be them to ask for money, I mean, it's a really bad look, right? I think. So I think we have to be very cautious about how much we automate, and how much we automate about that final step in the process.
Certainly. And I've heard that said as a general rule of thumb for AI, like have a human in the process so it doesn't do dumb things like automatically deny everybody's health insurance claims, like whoopsie daisy, or yet a number of the embarrassments that people have managed to get themselves into when they use AI without the human oversight touch.
Yeah, I love large language models like ChatGPT for drafts, first drafts of articles, of emails, of marketing plans. I mean, there is massive value in the work that a large language model can provide and produce given the right input. So the work becomes less about what to produce and more about the inputs, the prompts that you give the models. But all of that is really wonderful, again, for a first draft. And then I urge you as a human to take that first draft and check it over, first of all, like literally for some obvious ones. We've heard some of the horror stories there, but then work with it. Use it as a starting point, because what a great starting point. Sometimes folks have come to me super overwhelmed. How do I just had a woman that I invested in say, I need a marketing plan. I don't know even where to start. And I said, here's where to start. Go to ChatGPT, put in your goals, put in your budget, put in your target audience, and ask for a draft of a marketing plan. She did, and it produced a 6-page marketing plan for her to consider. Now, that's a great first draft, but it took 10 minutes. And years ago, without me, without that idea, she might have taken to come up with that initial starting point.
Beautiful. Well, Dave, tell me, anything else you want to make sure to mention before we shift gears and hear about some of your favorite things?
I want to give the listeners credit. Sometimes I take for granted that some of this stuff is easy, and because I've been doing it for a while, but I want to recognize that it's hard. It's hard to shift a mindset. It's hard to change. It's hard to let go of stuff that you're used to owning and controlling and doing the work on. And I want to really take a moment to recognize that and appreciate that. If you're listening and you're thinking, well, he's full of SH and in the real world, this is hard. I hear you and I get it. It is hard stuff and it is worth doing the work on, is my pitch. It's worth muddling through and challenging oneself and becoming more self-aware about the limiting beliefs and challenge and fears that are holding us back from delegating more, and the constraints that we think we have that maybe we don't have as badly as we might think, and then doing the work. And there's a brighter side on the other side of the rainbow. It really is. It gets easier.
Big thanks to Dave for sharing his wisdom with us, and big thanks to our sponsors. Check them out. And big thanks to our sponsor, Acorns. Acorns makes it easy to start automatically saving and investing for your future. You don't need a lot of money or expertise to invest with Acorns. In fact, you can get started with just your spare change. Acorns recommends an expert-built portfolio that fits you and your money goals, then automatically invests your money for you. NerdWallet.com, whom I love on these sorts of matters, gives Acorns a whopping 4.7 stars and says, quote, if you want to make the most of your spare change, there's no better place to do that than Acorns. Head to acorns.com/awesome or download the Acorns app to start saving and investing for your future today. And we got a legal disclaimer here. It may not be representative of all clients. Tier 1 compensation provided. Compensation provides an incentive to positively promote Acorns. View important disclosures at acorns.com/awesome. Investing involves risk, including the loss of principal. Please consider your objectives, risk tolerance, and Acorns' fees before investing. Acorns Advisors LLC, Acorns, is an SEC-registered investment advisor. Brokerage services are provided to clients of Acorns by Acorns Securities LLC, member FINRA/SIPC. For more information, visit acorns.com. One sponsor to check out is Harvard Business Review. This brilliant magazine, published at hbr.org, is the leading destination for smart management thinking. Fun fact, HBR has been mentioned in 108 episodes of the show. That's because HBR has great stuff that comes up often. They've got explainer videos, podcasts, real-world case studies, and much more. I think of HBR each night that I put on my special orange glasses. Their article, Will Blue Light Glasses Improve Your Sleep?, revealed that those who wore them reported better sleep and a 7% improvement in work performance as compared to those who wore the sham glasses. So I cite HBR anytime anyone tells me that I look silly wearing them. Now, much of HBR's content is available for free when you sign up at their site. Subscriptions that get you unlimited content cost $10 a month. If you visit hbr.org/subscriptions and enter the promo code AWESOME, you can save 10% off of that subscription. Again, to save 10% off of your HBR subscription, go to www.hbr.org/subscriptions and enter the promo code AWESOME. One sponsor to check out is Storyworth. Whenever I'm thinking about meaningful Father's Day gifts, Storyworth leaps to mind. Storyworth helps you preserve precious memories and stories from your father for years to come. Each week, Storyworth emails your loved ones a thought-provoking question that you get to help pick, such as, what's the bravest thing you've ever done? I personally love the prompt so much that I have refreshed Storyworth's questions page many times looking for more. Storyworth makes the writing process super quick and easy. All your loved one needs to do is respond to that email with a story, and then you get a quick copy of that. And after a year of this fun, Storyworth compiles your loved one's stories and photos into a beautiful keepsake hardcover book that you'll be able to share and revisit for generations to come. Families love Storyworth so much, they've got 25,000 five-star reviews on Trustpilot and have millions of stories preserved. So give all the fathers in your life a unique, heartfelt gift they'll all cherish for years. Storyworth. Right now, you can save $10 on your first purchase when you go to storyworth.com/awesome. That's storyworth.com/awesome to save $10 on your first purchase. Lovely. All right, well, now could you share with us a favorite quote, something you find inspiring?
Sure. My favorite quote is from Seth Godin, who writes, "How dare you settle for less when the world's made it so easy to be remarkable?" I think so many of us go through life like not being as intentional as we could be and not doing the work to like really stand out and be amazing. And I think, like Seth says, it's not that hard to be amazing. Go for it.
All right. Well, now could you share a favorite study or experiment or bit of research?
Probably Adam Grant's research. He's probably my favorite author, and I love his research. I'll go back to his initial research from his first book, Give and Take, that talked about givers, takers, and matchers, and the value of becoming a giver and giving freely. It's a little tricky to talk about this on a podcast because I get that like I'm giving information but it's more of a matching situation. I'm expecting to get book promotion. I'm getting that, and I'm grateful for it. That first book of his that I read really moved me, if I wasn't a giver already, to become a giver to the extent possible. And the research shows that it pays. It's ironic because we need to give without the expectation of getting something back. But when we do that, it just comes back to us tenfold in the long run.
All right. And can you share a favorite tool so that helps you be awesome at your job?
There's so many that I could talk about, but I want to say that the free, simplest set of tools is Google Suite. Yeah, Google Sheets, Google Docs, and Google Slides. Those three I use nearly every day, and for next to nothing, I'm able to do a lot of cool stuff. So thank you, Google.
All right. And a favorite habit?
Walking. Walking gets the blood flowing and is a healthy habit. I chuckled because I have a whole bunch of habits that maybe are enjoyable, maybe not as healthy as walking.
Okay. And is there a key nugget you share that really seems to connect and resonate with folks? They quote it back to you often?
With the context of delegation in mind, it's probably hire slow, fire fast.
Okay. And if folks want to learn more, get in touch, where would you point them?
I would say first and foremost, I have pro bono office hours. I've met with 838 people over the last 10 years on Thursday afternoons. So anyone that wants to chat with me, get some free coaching, absolutely no strings attached. I never charge for coaching ever. Go to scheduledave.com and you can book some free time with me on a Thursday afternoon. Of course, the book, Get Over Yourself, and all my books are available in Amazon and bookstores everywhere. And if you're looking for really awesome college level talent, chooseapprentice.com is our website.
Okay. And you have a final challenge or call to action for folks looking to be awesome at their jobs.
Feel the fear. Life is scary. Be courageous. Think of what you can get off of your plate and challenge yourself to say no to more, and then figure out how you can take those no's and get that work done one way or the other, either delegating to humans, delegating to ChatGPT, getting that work off your plate so that you can say yes to more, not necessarily at your job, but more of your priorities in your life and with your family.
Lovely. Dave, this is powerful stuff. Thank you. I wish you many more successful delegations.
Thank you so much for having me, Pete. It's great to connect.
My favorite part of this conversation with Dave is when he said, I like to click send. And that doesn't sound like all that revolutionary a thought. But if you look at the context, here's this guy, Dave, who is a rock star at delegating, wrote the book on delegating, has a company that gets college students who need some coaching, some support, right, to be effective in roles, helping out folks as apprentices. So master delegator extraordinaire says, I like to click send. I think that's a great rule of thumb to, one, not embarrass yourself when you're in the midst of automating stuff and delegating stuff. And two, really highlights that delegation is certainly not an all or nothing proposition. It's not like, oh, it's out of my hands, it's all yours. Because that's how it can feel from a fear resistance perspective on the outside looking in at the very beginning of it. But rather, you can very clearly delineate the roles. Who's going to do what parts of this thing? And I'm not just going to hand it all over, but that's the part, the clicking of send, that I'm going to hold on to. And likewise, whenever you're delegating something, you can clearly define, okay, I've got some things I'm holding on to, some safeguards to ensure that we're not going to have a disaster after all. All right. The fear can calm down a notch and we can let go a little bit and unlock all the goodies that Dave was talking about through delegation. I like to click send, or maybe it's, I like to communicate the insights of the report to the client. Sure, you get to decide where the boundaries, what do you own, and what does someone else own, how do the check-ins and all that work. And in so doing, take some baby steps through that fear and liberate all that goodness. Great stuff from Dave. If you'd like a summary of the actionable wisdom, please sign up for the Gold Nugget emails at awesomeatyourjob.com. And if you want to see the transcript and links to items that we've referenced, please visit us at awesomeatyourjob.com/EP956. Hope to catch you next time, and peace.
Thanks for listening. To get the most out of the show, we recommend 2 key things. First, check out the extra resources at awesomeatyourjob.com. You can find this episode's transcript and links, as well as the perfect episode for your situation. You can search the full text transcripts of hundreds of episodes or explore episodes tagged by topic and competency covered. Second, subscribe to the podcast and get future episodes automatically. You can subscribe by telling Siri and several other smartphones and speakers, subscribe to the How to Be Awesome at Your Job podcast, or by tapping subscribe in your podcast player of choice. If you'd like some extra help figuring out podcasts and how subscriptions work, visit awesomeatyourjob.com/subscribe for guidance. Hope to catch you on the next episode of How to Be Awesome at Your Job.